Look, it's my new car.
I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you
A friggin' Crossfire. Yeah, so this is my new daily driver, a 2005 Chrysler Crossfire, and technically my very first American car, because Crossfire, that's a true American roadster, right? Or is it?
The Crossfire is a child of the Daimler-Chrysler days. By the start of the new millennium, German Mercedes-Benz and American Chrysler formed a partnership. What was described as a merger of equals turned out to be a dysfunctional couple, where Mercedes became the beating husband and Chrysler the obedient wife. The Crossfire became the dysfunctional son.
Oh, come on, is this really that bad? Maybe, but get this. This is not a real American car. This is a German car. This rides on the first generation Mercedes SLK platform. Right around the time when Mercedes released a new generation SLK, Chrysler wanted a roadster, wanted to make use of the new SLK platform, but it was Daimler that said, no, you're going to use the first generation, the leftovers, as a hand-me-down. Good luck.
Various stories with various percentages go around, but most say that 80% of its parts are shared with the SLK, and things like the chassis, transmission, suspension, and engine are all Mercedes. It's a German wearing an American coat.
But let's talk about that code, shall we? Because if there's one thing about the Chrysler Crossfire, is that it is a car with many lines. Now, the most famous of body lines is the so-called Crossfire line. It's a line that is created through the body moldings. It starts with a dent, or something like a dent in the front fender, and then eventually sticks out in the rear. And right at that moment where the line goes from inboard to outboard, something like that point right there is called the Crossfire. And so the Crossfire line is the most famous line of them all. But the car features more lines, including the hood with its many grooves, except one, the middle line, which sticks out. And actually, that middle line is part of a line that starts from the lower bumper, through the grille, over the hood, into the interior, through the dashboard, through the center console, all the way to the center armrest, and even down to the rear end, to the rear bumper, and even down to the dual exhaust that splits in half.
The overall style is very much unique to say the least, kinda like Chrysler's take on the roadster theme, with cars such as the Audi TT and the Nissan 350Z as its competitors. But Chrysler decided to take the retro route and apply some Art Deco design influence to it, like the bold Ecrate grille. Put it next to the rest of the Chrysler lineup, like the Chrysler 300 and the PT Cruiser, and it all starts to make sense. But does Chrysler also manage to execute the style in such a nice way in the interior?
Well, not really. For starters, this is a direct one-on-one copy of the Mercedes SLK interior. But whereas Mercedes actually put effort in making a nice interior, you know, with some chrome trim around the knobs, etc., here it's, I don't know, they managed to screw it up. And it has been heavily criticized for feeling rather cheap, and I can tell you from owner's experience, it is cheap, or at least it feels cheap. For instance, I'm talking about the semi-automated climate control. Usually when you have climate control, you can set the temperature and then it will heat up according to that temperature. But here you don't have numbers. You have these dials that are either red, white, and blue. And that's beautiful patriotism, I get it. But it doesn't tell me how hot it is. When I put it on red, is it for me? Is it my hot? Or is it your hot? Everybody has a different perception of hotness. I am not hot. My girlfriend is. Brad Pitt is hot. I'm ugly. Well, no, that doesn't matter. Anyway, it's hard to tell. But you know, your perception of what is hot and cold is different than it is for me. And then we have to talk about the whole execution, because you have this shiny metal right here, and they call it a satin nickel finish. But I like to call it wrapped in tinfoil. And it is very cheap, because get this, you can find it here on the center console, you can find it on the door pulls, and you can find it on the exterior window frame. If you are at an American car show and you see a Chrysler Crossfire, walk up to it and look at the door pulls, because this satin nickel finish or tinfoil will start to peel off. In fact, it is already done on both my door handles. Talking about quality. And it's even so bad that on the passenger side, you can seriously cut your finger. Now, here's where it gets even more funny. There is a lively aftermarket business for Chrysler Crossfires. You can get everything from Lamborghini doors to, chrome everything. There are even sleeves for sale. Like, owners will buy sleeves that cover up the peeling tin foil. And that's just beautiful. Instead of trying to fix what is going wrong, bad quality interior, we try to cover it up by buying a sleeve, or some owners just change their doors to a different material like Alcantara or some other kind of leathery stuff. And then there is the last thing, the cup holder. Besides being a rather weird cup holder, it doesn't lock anymore, so it always stays up. Once again, if you go to an American car show, look for a Chrysler Crossfire, this might be a problem. You can put the bottle in there, but the locking mechanism is broken, and that's a common problem on these cars. Now, if you want to fix it, I believe I'm correct when I say that you have to take out the whole mid console or center console to get this fixed. And otherwise, you could just put, oh, there we go. But otherwise, you can just put tape over it and it'll stay there. Quality. And then there are the wiper controls, the turning signals, and the cruise control, all neatly organized in either one or two stalks on the left side of the steering wheel. This feels a bit counterintuitive. Usually it's on both sides of the steering wheel, but this is not necessarily a Chrysler thing. This is more like a Mercedes thing. The same setup you can also find in the Chrysler 300, which is essentially a Mercedes E-Class. And it feels a bit off since they kind of reversed it. So where usually the cruise control stalk is the turning signal, and the other way around. So if you come from a car where it's the other way around, you get in, you want to indicate, and gosh darn it, you'll keep your speed, and you were just about to brake because you were about to enter an intersection and indicate because you accidentally put on your cruise control.
So all in all, Chrysler didn't change a whole lot about the car, but what they did change, they managed to screw up.
Now the Crossfire came in two body styles, a sleek looking fastback coupe and the better choice, a convertible. Might take a while. It's a beautiful day. There we are.
And that brings me to the performance and the engines. The Crossy only came with SLK's top spec engine, the 3.2 liter V6, making 215 horsepower. Now, that's not a lot, but it's plenty for me. The car is quick and I have about double the horsepower compared to most other cars on the road. An upgraded version was also offered, a supercharged V6 sold as the SRT6 model, making an extra 100 horsepower, but those are rare and cost 3 times more than what I paid for this Crossfire. And oh yeah, there are also some people out there that managed to drop an Hemi V8 in it. Nice.
Now here is where it gets interesting. The automatic comes with 2 driving modes, W and S. And W stands for wussy mode and S stands for super mode. Or, according to critics, it stands for the seasons, that W stands for winter mode and S stands for summer mode. But what do they know? And here is where it gets more interesting. If I put the car in summer mode, and if I turn the traction control off, let's see what happens.
Although the car is sporty, it doesn't have the sharpness like a Mercedes, whether it's the performance, the cornering, or the shifting by the transmission. So the Crossfire has to fall back on the claim many American cars make when they find themselves coming short on other things: cruising. Isn't this just a nice car for some open-top seaside cruising?
Yes and no. See, when American cars are made for cruising, they come with soft suspension. This one doesn't. It finds potholes in a road that you otherwise wouldn't find, not even with a magnifying glass. And I guess it's a matter of perception, because if you come from a, an even sportier car, then this suspension might be soft. But I come from a soft riding Hyundai XG, and oh God, it just feels so hard. Ooh.
And compared to the Hyundai, it turns out that the XG was a lot of value for very little money. The Crossfire is a lot of money for little value. Yes, it has electric and heated seats, and yes, it has a little spoiler that comes up at highway speeds, but the headlights are operated manually. The wipers are operated manually. There is no interior fuel door or trunk release, and oh yeah, it doesn't even have parking sensors. A mid-2000s upper middle class car without parking sensors. And people in the Netherlands paid over 50,000 bucks for a car that doesn't even come with parking sensors.
You might get the impression that I don't like this car very much, and maybe it's true, but there's a lot of things that I like about it. I like its power, I like its speed, I like that it is quick, I like the design. It's unique, it's obscure, not many people know what it is, and I like the open top. I mean, come on, it's a beautiful day. The summer is right around the corner. And yet, the more I drive it, the more I start to want a classic, luxurious, comfortable cruiser. I don't really like the suspension. I like my suspension soft. And then you think, okay, Edward, so if you like your Hyundai so much, why did you buy this car? Well, let's just say that I had solid reasons. Yeah. Anyway, this is one of those in-between cars. One of those cars that you drive for, let's say, a year and a half, just to see what it's like. It's kind of like a novelty car. And then you move on to something more concrete. And so I'm planning to stick to this for a while, enjoy the summer, and then maybe start to look for another car. Because it's a perfect car. It's a great car, don't get me wrong. But as for Chrysler, in an attempt to make a competitive sports car, roadster, I think it's a lukewarm attempt. The Chrysler Crossfire is nothing more than a footnote in the history of Chrysler. And maybe it should stay that way.